Well, we're going to continue our story here in Ephesians chapter 6 with the armor of God. So if you have your Bibles nearby, I invite you to get started in, we're going to begin in verse 10 of chapter 6. We're going to reread through this little piece up to where we are today. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. All right, that's where we are today. So, in addition to all this, he says, I want you to also take up the shield of faith. Now, a shield in the time of the Roman occupation, and the shield was maybe a little different than what we think of. I go immediately to Captain America, with his shiny round shield with a star in the middle, that is a great shield. But that's probably not the picture that Paul has in mind. This is a Roman shield, which the Romans were a little bit more, more protective. And so the Roman shield was a wooden shield, usually a little bit concave or convex from my side, whichever side you want to look at, was rounded, and it was made out of wood, and then it was often, or most of the time, covered with leather, and then they would soak the leather in water, so that when the arrows came, which flaming arrows were pretty common in the times of the Roman wars back there, the flaming arrows would come in and they would hit the leather, and they would not catch the leather on fire because the leather was dampened and would hold its moisture for a long time. And so the shield was a good defense. It was also big. It covered from about eye level down to the shins. It was a big piece. It was actually the word in Greek for this shield is also the word for door. So it was like they were carrying a door around with them. And often they would run in groups. So there'd be 4 or 5 to the side, and then 3 or 4 or 5 back. And they would run in this pack. So they would come in close together, and they would put the shields together, and they would move forward. In fact, the guys behind would put the shields over the heads of each other, and they would stack it up like an armadillo is what I picture. And they're all moving together, and they're going down there, and they're fully protected on the front and the top, not the side or the back, but they were protected well. So that way they could move up to somebody who was in a castle type place where it was high ground and they were shooting down. They could still keep moving forward and fighting the fight. And so this picture is of a big piece of armament to carry with them. And so Paul says, I want you to take up that shield. You got to have that shield, because that's what's going to protect you from how many of the arrows of the evil one? I forget. What does it say in our text? Oh, all the arrows of the evil one would be protected by the shield of faith. And so the picture is, you got to have it. You got to pick it up. You got to bring it with you. Every morning that I go off to the big mansion to work, that other one, I have a little routine in the morning because I have forgotten things so often. Perhaps you have this problem. I don't know whether it's because I just had another birthday, but I'm even more worried about forgetting things. I have arrived at work where I have to have a badge with a little magnetic RFID insert in it so that I can run against a little detector on the outside of the building and it'll let me in. And if you don't have the badge, you don't get in. No ticky, no shirty. No, you can't get in. And so I've been all the way to the door and gone, oh, the badge. And then I have to drive home. That's 20 minutes later I get home, and 20 minutes later I get back to work. So it's something that I really work hard on. Make sure you got your badge. Have you got your badge? Good. I got my badge and I got my phone for work. I got my phone for home. So I got 2 phones and my badge. And now with COVID, I've got my what do you call that? Briefcase. That's what it's called. I got my briefcase home with my computer in it from work, so that I can work at home if that works out for the day. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. So, a couple weeks ago, I ended up all the way back down to work, and I pull into I got my badge. I got my phone. I got phone on each side. I'm ready to go. I get to all the way down to work, and I arrived in my cube, and I go, who stole my computer? Oh, I stole my computer. It's at home. So I had to turn around again. So this is the reminder. Okay, I got to get my badge, my phone, my computer. I should have the right set of keys. Of course, that'll be pretty short disaster if I get downstairs and I can't start the car. But I got to have those elements in order to get off and get to work. Paul here is challenging us to say, guys, I want you to put on the whole armor. He said that a bunch of times. Put on the whole armor. You got to get everything. And so you started off with that truth, that belt of truth. I want you to have truth. I want you to know truth. I want you to carry truth with you out the door. I want you to have righteousness. I want you to know that you're accepted by God. I want you to know that right actions and doing what is good and right before God is important. So I want you to have the breastplate of righteousness on. You got truth. You got the righteousness on. And last week we talked about having a readiness that comes from the gospel. For knowing how God saves and that God saves is going to lead us out into the world. And we're going to bring that message to those around us. Are you ready to give a reason for the hope that is within you? Today he's got the 4th piece of armament. I know it's starting to get too many. We're going to have to make a list to remind ourselves, okay, I got to take up the shield of faith. I got to take up that shield of faith in order to defend myself against the flaming arrows of the evil one. Well, this shield, this big door, if you will, had a couple of uses. Obviously, it was for protection. It was also for protection in a group, which is an interesting parallel when you think about the community of faith. That sometimes my faith, my shield, helps you in the battle, because you don't have your shield up. I can help by shielding both of us a little bit by my faith. And we all need to get our faith and believe ourselves, but there's something about that group picture too that maybe Paul had in mind. I don't know, as he had people covering the top of another with their shield so that they could both be underneath the shield and the other one is carrying the front. Maybe it's part of that community. We're working together. I believe, and therefore I help you to believe. I bring to you the confidence, the reminder, the statements, the truths that you know, that belt of truth that you know, but you need to be reminded of. There's a community that works together that can make a difference if we are in it together in faith. So maybe that's part of what he's looking at here. Also, one of the last things was on the front of that shield, there'd be an emblem of some kind to kind of identify whose side you're on. It would be the roaring lion side, or I don't know what they had on there. I always picture a lion. So that symbol on the outside of your shield establishes whose army you are part of. I thought it would be fun. Maybe, if you're an artist and you like to dabble and you're sitting on the phone and you don't know what to draw, maybe you could draw the emblem you'd put on the shield that you carry, the shield of faith that you have. What would you put out there for your emblem? And if you get sketches and you send them to me, we'll post them next week. The shield of faith, identifying myself with the King, identifying myself with the Lord. And so I establish that. I protect as a team together against those flaming arrows. So pick up the shield of faith. Now, in Hebrews, I want to turn over just a little bit and look at a couple of passages about faith. Hebrews 11, of course, is the passage all about faith. And the first verse of chapter 11 is pretty important to our understanding. Now, faith, this is 11:1 in Hebrews. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. God is challenging us to trust Him in the place where we can't see. We don't know exactly. We're working kind of in the physical realm, and that spiritual realm is pretty much out of our purview. We don't see it. There's a story about a guy who was in the war. I'm going to read it for you. I stole this offline somewhere. This is World War II, and he says, during the terrible days of the Blitz, the Blitzkrieg, this is Germany and coming against us, a father holding his small son by the hand ran from a building that had been struck by a bomb. In the front yard was a shell hole. Seeking shelter as quickly as possible, the father jumped into the hole and held up his arms for his son to follow. Terrified, yet hearing his father's voice telling him to jump, the boy replied, "I can't see you." The father, looking up against the sky tinted red by the burning buildings, called to the silhouette of his son, "But I can see you. Jump." The boy jumped because he trusted his father. The Christian faith is like that, right? We can't see, but we need to trust our God, our Father, our Dad. He's in the hole and He says to jump, and we go, "Man, I can't see it, but I trust you." That's faith. That's believing God, even when it's not obvious to us. It's believing God when it's invisible to us, when it's unseen. We have to go by a confidence in who God is, what God has said to us, and we move forward believing. Hebrews, if we go back to that passage a little bit further down, verse 6, it says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God." Now that's pretty striking. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Because if we take faith out of the formula, we're not doing it for God. We're not doing it because of God. Because God's not in the formula. And so without faith, without that confidence in God, none of it pleases Him. We can do all kinds of actions, but without faith, without a confidence that God's working in and through and with us, then it's not pleasing to the Lord, because we're doing it for ourselves, or we're doing it for other reasons. And God says, "What about me? What about me?" Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Now we know faith is the entry point of our movement with God, of our walk with God. You know, as we've talked over John 3:16 almost every week, we bring it up because it's so critically important. But God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever, man, it's right there, it's the believes in Him. Whoever has faith, whoever takes up that shield of faith, I believe in you, Lord. I believe in you. That's where we begin our walk of faith. 1 John has a little passage that I'd like to turn. There's just a couple pages down, Hebrews, James, 1st, 2nd John. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4 says, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world." Let that sink in for a minute. "For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith." This is the victory. This is the part that will give us the ability to extinguish the flaming arrows. It's our faith. That's where we have the ability to do whatever is necessary. The ability to fight whatever comes against us. It's through our faith. Not our strength, not our wisdom, not our understanding, not our ability, not our gifts and blessings around us. It's really back down to our faith. Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe? You know, there's a story of there was out Midwest somewhere, they were having a terrible famine. And so the pastor called a prayer service, and he said, I want to pray for rain, guys. So we're going to get together on Wednesday night, we'll say. We're going to pray for rain. And so the church shows up, a little church in the middle of a very agrarian society there. You know, they all need the rain. So they all show up for rain, the prayer for rain. And they pray, and the pastor kind of stops somewhere in the middle of this prayer, and he looks around and he says, you know, this little girl over here, she's the one that I think has the most faith, you know. And of course the seniors, the elders, the ones that were mature and long walking with God, they were surprised. And they said, well, Pastor, why do you say that this little girl has the best faith among us? You know, I mean, that's not very fair. I got a lot of faith. He said, well, she's the only one who brought an umbrella. Ah, see, now that's faith. Huh? You go to the prayer meeting for rain and you bring an umbrella. That's believing. That's believing. So faith is interesting in that we can't hold on to it, we can't touch it. It's so distant in a way, and yet it's so critical to everything we do. Do you really, really believe? Is God really in charge? Is God really going to take care of me? Do you really believe that? Well, he talks about these flaming arrows, so maybe we should discuss that a little bit. The flaming arrows were a pretty common war technique in the day. Arrows, swift, silent, coming in from usually a fortified area. Somebody is shooting at you and they're hiding in the woods. I think of Robin Hood, you know, and he's behind a tree and he's letting the arrows fly. And the enemy is much like that. You don't see him. He doesn't like arrive in a big black limousine and say, hey, I got bad stuff for you. You want some? You know, it's more like, oh, got me. He just shoots quietly, and all of a sudden you're hit. That's kind of the picture that Paul's painting here. The flaming arrows of the evil ones, the ones that will come and damage us and continue to damage us if the flame catches, which is the intent, was to throw it into a building with a thatched roof. That you can imagine what would happen with a flaming arrow on a thatched roof. That'd be a mess. And so Paul's picture here is that the evil one is sending to us flaming arrows. He's sending disasters quietly, subtly, powerfully, and effectively into our hearts. His aim, as we know, is to hurt, to negatively, to steal, kill, and destroy, John 10:10 says. In fact, the word here, the evil one, in our text today, the evil one is not somebody who's evil in who he is, but it's evil in intent. So it's not like the bad guy, it's like the guy who's out to destroy. It's not the evil one as in he's nasty, it's the evil one as in he's bringing disaster to us. And so this evil one with his flaming arrows is coming to attack us. Now, how does he do that? Oh man, there's just an infinite variety of ways, aren't there? And I'm sure we could all make a list of them. Now maybe there's some doubt in your world. That's certainly the antithesis of faith. There's doubt. I'm not sure God's even here. I'm not sure God's going to do his thing. That's the flip side of faith. And so faith obviously would turn that on its head. If I could believe, if I did believe, if I had a confidence in God, then this doubt would go away. I would have success, victory over that flaming arrow. Faith will take care of it. Discontent. We always long for more. We long for better. And that's not necessarily wrong, because God is a God of perfection, and he's calling us to perfection, and he longs for us to have the best and the most. But he also recognizes that our needs for the earthly things, man, those things have got to be, you got to be low on the priority list. God's saying that, even visually, as he sent his son into the world. He said, okay, I'm going to send the King of Kings down there into where? A manger, into a feeding trough for cattle. I'm going to send him into a little town into a humble place. I'm gonna have him have no extra tunic. He's gonna rumble around the world without any earthly possessions, no home, no place to lay his head, is what the scriptures talk about. To give us the picture, to say, okay, that stuff, those things, make that minimal. Bring that down. Bring that to a lower level. What is it that God wants us to have? Where is the contentment? Where is the thankfulness? Because it's there that we begin to say, God, I'm so glad you're with me. Flaming arrow of discontent. Flaming arrow of fear. How about that? That's a great one in the midst of COVID disasters. Man, there's always something to be scared of out there. I went to Home Depot the other day, and the third guy up in front of me, he's wearing no mask, and he's loud and, making a lot of noise and turning around and talking, and I'm like, oh boy. And the irony of the whole scene was that there was a giant sandwich board within 3 feet of his head that said, please do not enter the store without a mask. I said, dude, look at the sign. I didn't say that. I was quiet. I said, okay, Lord. Fear. Are we afraid? If we're afraid, does that say something about our faith? Yeah. If we got faith, does it say something about our fear? Yeah. It'll certainly address it. God, I believe that you are here. And maybe that's a time when we're fighting those arrows. Maybe that's a time to think about that belt of truth. Lord, what do I know about you? That you are powerful, that you are good, that you like me, that you've died in my place, that I'm forgiven, that heaven's waiting. There's a lot of powerful things to just remind myself about to help me with my faith, with my belief. God, I trust you. You're worthy of my trust. I can't see you down there in that foxhole, Father, but I trust you can see me, and I'm ready to jump with faith, with a confidence that you'll be there, that you'll take care of me. Now, I thought it kind of interesting that the arrows of the evil one, they come at us directly from him or from his minions. And that has a whole different meaning these days, doesn't it? The word minion. Anyway, it comes from the evil one, but also it comes from within. There's a psalm I want to turn to, over to Psalm 55. That was a good reminder for me as I read through this. Psalm 55, verse 12. This is a psalm of David, and David is calling out to the Lord, Lord, help me, because my enemies are coming against me, and I need your help, which is a perfectly legitimate thing to do in faith. But down in verse 12, he says, if an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of God, as we walked about among the worshipers. If the enemy were somebody outside, I could handle it better, David said. But it's inside. We hurt each other, and we shoot flaming arrows at one another. This is a challenge. It's not just out there. It's not just the bad dude. It's us, because we're just human. We're frail, and we hurt each other. And those flaming arrows come in. And if we have a faith that is solid enough to say, I know the truth. I know what really is going on here. I can defend against those arrows, even the arrows that come from within, and say, that's not the intention. That's not where it's at. That's not what God intends here, and I understand it, and I think we can work it through. I think we can work it out. There are sources within. Matthew records the story, actually, several Gospels of Peter, where he gets this insight, you are the Son of God. He's got amazing insight from God. And the Lord calls him aside and said, Peter, blessed are you, man. The Lord has revealed that to the inside. You really know something amazing. You got some confidence, some faith growing in there, Peter. And then just a few minutes later, he's like, well, I don't think that you're going to go to the cross, Jesus. You just not, that's not happening. I'm sorry. We're not going to do that. And right there, Jesus calls him aside and he says, Peter, get behind me, Satan. You just missed it. You totally missed it. It's an internal attack. Peter, don't try to shoot with me. Don't try to shoot at me, Jesus said. This is not the truth. This is not the way it's going to go. It is going to be that I give my life up. And Peter missed it. Peter missed it. He got it great over here and he missed it over here. And he shot the arrow at the one he loved the most, not even realizing what he was doing. We hurt each other. Luke chapter 4 has also a little testimony about Jesus, and maybe you'll remember this piece. Jesus is walking into the wilderness, and he's being tempted by the devil, one thing after another, trying to get him to fall, trying to get him to make a mistake, shooting those flaming arrows at the Lord himself. And at the end of that, Jesus holds tough. His faith is solid, and he extinguishes all the flaming arrows of the evil one. But down there in verse 13 is this kind of difficult verse. He says, when the devil had finished all this tempting, he left him until an opportune time. Oh, that just feels bad. So the evil one came with the arrows. He's shooting the arrows. The defense is solid. Jesus holds up a shield. He can't get through. The evil one can't get to his heart. And so the evil one leaves and says, I'm going to wait for just the right time. And we've seen that in our lives, where things are just all lined up, and it's a weak time. It's a difficult time. It's a time where things are more vulnerable than usual. And maybe our faith is a little bit down, or maybe we're a little bit tired, and we're not holding it as strong as we could. And so the evil one comes and shoots an arrow right in there at an opportune time. God says, keep your faith up. Keep your faith strong. Keep your confidence in me strong. And you'll be able to defend yourself against those arrows. Now, James chapter 1 is our last little piece here. James is talking about difficulties and troubles. Chapter 1, verse 14. He talks about our own internal arrow shooting, if you will. It says in chapter 1, verse 14, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. Sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. James here says, we've turned the flames up inside our own selves. We shoot ourselves. The classic picture is we shoot ourselves in the foot. I got my pistol out and I accidentally shot myself in the foot. That's what we do. We shoot ourselves because our own evil desires, our own tendency to not believe and trust God, instead to trust our own desires, it hurts us on the inside. It takes us down. And so the challenge here that Paul brings is this shield of believing will protect you through all those flaming arrows. Each one of them has a subtlety of getting in, but if we keep our faith strong, if we keep that shield of faith strong, then God promises we will be protected from all the flaming arrows. So let's get that umbrella out, okay? When you go to prayer, let's bring it to the church meeting and let's say, Lord, I'm ready. I'm ready for your answer. I'm ready to see that you are going to do what you say you're going to do. I believe you. I absolutely believe you, and I trust you in this. So God, help us to do that today. Amen.